Hey guys, welcome back to Project E. If you saw last week, you saw a master, Andy, skipping boat docks, taught us how to do that. Now, I came out this week and I broke these boat docks down right here for you on Project E.
From the top of the mountain, yeah, we fly away to the top of the mountain. Yeah, we fly away to the top of the mountain. Yeah, we never coming down from the top of the mountain.
The reasons that I think that it's the perfect bass holding piece of structure is, one, it's got a tremendous amount of shade. You know, in the summertime, bass want shade. In the wintertime, that shade almost acts as some sort of conductor for heat. They'll put off some heat. It adds protection for those bass. You know, those boat docks, you know, when you get the boats in there and the cables, it's just almost impossible to get a lure anywhere a bass could go. A bass could go back there and sulk underneath a boat dock, and I can't get my lure there. We saw last week that Andy might be able to get a lure there, but there's still areas on these boat docks that I don't think Andy could get a lure. You know, another great thing that I think makes these the best fish holding pieces of cover is that they don't have to move very far. They can do everything they want in a life cycle of a bass, from spawning up shallow behind it to living out deep on the very end and everything in between. And then on top of that, so many times the owners, you know, they'll add brush to those boat docks. They'll add fish feeders to those boat docks. You know, they hold bluegill. You know, we've done shad spawn episodes where the shad will spawn on those boat docks. So a boat dock has the entire food chain for a bass. It has all that protection for a bass. You know, it's just a very, very secure location. And then on top of that, when you get on these lakes that are just completely hugely populated, there's thousands of them. I mean, just thousands upon thousands of them all over the lake. So it's just a really, really great fish holding piece of structure that you and I need to always have in our arsenal, always be in the back of my mind to add or eliminate to our day out there on the water if it's going to be, you know, one of the possibilities for us to catch fish off of.
There's one. Gosh, that's a good one.
Look at where that bait is at. You can't even see it. You can't even see it. Holy smokes. He engulfed it when you look at that.
When I'm approaching boat docks, you know, there's really three casts that I try to think about. You know, I think about the front side of that boat dock, I think about the side, and then I think behind it. You know, that front side I really like because, you know, a lot of times on a boat dock they have the cross braces that come down 4 to 6 feet underneath the boat slips that ties that whole boat dock together. So you've got a piece of horizontal cover in the front of that boat dock that those fish can relate to. And sometimes, you know, there's certain times of the year that's the only place you can get a bite. It's a great place to throw a crankbait down the front side. It's a great place to swim a worm or swim a jig down the front side. You know, a lot of times I've had tournaments where I'll bounce my plastic worm on that cross brace. You know, I'll just sit there and kind of yo-yo it over that front side. It's just it's one spot that it's my favorite spot, so to say. When they're on that, I can cover a lot of water. I don't have to slow down, and it's a great spot. You know, that front side, a lot of times there's also ladders, adds a little bit more of protection, adds a little bit more shade, a little bit more cover to that front side. But that's probably my favorite cast on a boat dock. My second favorite cast on a boat dock is down the sides, again, because it's something I can do to cover water. I can throw down the left side, I can throw down the right side. You know, again, I can use that with a spinnerbait, a crankbait. You know, I can work my worm down the left side and the right side of a boat dock. The problem with that is everybody can do that. It's very accessible, so it takes out that factor. When we talked about that boat dock being this protection factor for a fish, you know, those are the easiest, and those are what 90% of everybody, including myself. It's very hard to make myself go around the back and really fish the back because it's so quick, so fast to make a cast down the side, make a cast down the front. I can cover water doing those things. When those don't work, that's when you really have to put it in snail mode and go down around the backside and make those presentations down the backside. You know, you've got the bank here and you got the backside of the dock. You usually have a walkway and you have all these cables. That's the heart of the boat dock. that spot behind it, that's the nucleus. That's where, like, that's the hardest spot to get to. That's the least amount of pressure on a boat dock from everybody else across the country, and yet it's the one that takes the most amount of time. And it's hard to make myself go to make that presentation because, you know, one, I can't a lot of times make it with a spinnerbait or a chatterbait or swimming a jig or any of that stuff because you got so many cables. You know, a crankbait's out of the question. You know, a lot of times you have a walkway, so you can't really skip a crankbait underneath there. So it makes you have to slow down and throw a worm or a jig down on the bottom or that Agent E down on the bottom, something that sinks. You know, something with big line, you have to get up tight. You have to be really methodical. You have a very short range a lot of times that you can move a bait, you know, to where on the sides and the front, you know, I'm covering the whole 20, 30 yards of the boat dock. When you get behind it with all the cables and the walkways and all that stuff that's back there, it's just a very time-consuming spot. But like I said, it's the heartbeat, it's the nucleus. It can be the very best spot when they get behind those boat docks.
That might be a better fish. That might be a better fish. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes, sirree. Yes, sirree. Look at that good one. Thank you, big old girl, for biting my worm. All right, all right, all right. That's a chunky one. Man, there's so many different angles that you can fish on a dock. And that's the toughest one. That shot right there. That's the one that gets fished the least. That's the best angle right there, no doubt. Thanks, bud. That's a good one. Thanks, buddy. Thank you, buddy. Sweet.
When you're fishing boat docks, I want you to take into account everything you can. Just like, you know, when we go to a lake that has timber and you think about, you know, there's timber everywhere, timber everywhere in that lake. Well, you try to take the timber away and you try to see what's on the bottom. You try to see the depth. You try to see if it's on a point, on a channel beam. Same thing with a boat dock. Pay attention to what kind of bottom it is, how deep it is underneath the front side, how deep it is under the back side. You know, when I think about the bottom, there's pea gravel, chunk rock, ledge rock, you know, riprap, clay, mud, so many different things. And there's times of the year that each one of those is better than all the others combined. So really pay attention to what the bottom composition's made of. Pay attention to where it sits on the lake. Sometimes, you know, it may be on a secondary point, a main lake point. It could be on the front of a channel swing, on a channel swing. It could be the very last boat dock in a pocket. It could be the very first boat dock in a pocket. I've seen patterns where those are the two docks that you need to fish. You don't need to fish any more of them in between. So always pay attention to what that boat dock is sitting on and around when you get that bite.
Fish, big one. Stay on there, baby. Stay on there, baby. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It is a tank. Golly fish. Come here, baby. Come here, baby. Oh, come here, please. Open that big mouth. Open that big mouth. Ah! Yes! Woo! Oh, let's go. We gotta keep.
Scale's ready for you, sir.
Oh.
6 pounds, 10 ounces.
Woo! Yes.
When I approach a dock, I like to stay off of them. You know, one mistake that I make a lot is, you know, I'll get up too tight. When you get up too tight, your bait's not in the strike zone as long, you're not able to make as good a cast, so stay back off that dock. You know, if you can stay 20, 30 yards off that dock, your bait's gonna stay down. If you're throwing a crankbait or a chatterbait, you know, it's not already starting to come up if I'm right on the very end of that dock. And then so many times right on the very end of that dock might be where you get that bite, right where that corner is. If my boat's sitting up close to that dock, well, my bait's already starting to come up by the time I get to that corner. So that's gonna be, I'm not gonna have as high a percentage in my catch ratio by not having my bait in the strike zone the entire length down that dock. And you do that by staying back off those docks.
Got you, baby. Yes. We're on the board.
When you go to approach docks, there's a lot of baits that'll work. You know, in the springtime, you know, I'm gonna be throwing like a spinner bait. I'm gonna be throwing a vibrating jig. I might be swimming a jig. You know, as summer gets here, I might be throwing a football jig if it's a really deep dock, you know, out off pea gravel. I might be throwing a jigging spoon underneath them. As it transitions into late summer, early fall, you know, that's when that crankbait starts to come into play. You know, when those fish start to suspend. If they're on the bottom, that's when I'm gonna throw like a big worm, or I'm gonna throw that Agent E bait, or you know, maybe just a regular casting jig, you know, working that on the bottom. You know, a lot of that dictates how much brush you have around that dock, you know, how open it is. But you know, there's a lot of baits you can use on a dock. Just use the one that's the most effective for the depth and the dock that you're fishing and the time of the year.
There's one. That's a good one. No, it's not. Just mean. Just mean. Right on that corner. One thing I like to look for in docks is you know, if you have a lot of same docks all in the same area, you know, obviously the bigger the dock, the more protection that dock's going to provide from that fish, as far as me not being able to get to that fish. You know, this dock here has got doors and there's boats in it, so it's really hard to skip a bait back in there. So this to me would be a good dock for a bass to live on year round and be hard to access, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I like finding docks like this that a lot of shade, a lot of cover, you know, and hard for me to get my bait into. I feel like it's just one added bonus to catch a big fish. I know I didn't right there, but I fully expected that to be a big one. All right, so there you guys have it. There's some things to think about when you approach boat docks. You know, in my opinion, one of the best pieces of cover a bass has ever had. We have them all across the country. Be sure you check out last week's episode with Andy on skipping boat docks. He's a hilarious guy and the best at it. So leave me some comments, guys, on anything that you'd like to see going forward on the channel, anything I can help you with. You know, just let me know. Leave them right here below, comment, hit that like button, guys. I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you next week right here on Project E.